There's your robbers, garbed up in their robbery clothes with their assault rifle as they entered this store.
Now, there's Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd describing the scene of an armed robbery in a local pawn shop. A deadly manhunt ensued immediately after, gripping Haines City over the weekend. Now 2 people dead and 4 suspects behind bars. But what happened in just minutes seemed like a lifetime for those clerks behind the counter.
You can see one of the clerks in the store cowering down as an assault rifle is pointed at his head.
A frightening scene, but just the beginning of what was about to happen. Once police got the call, they sped to the scene only to take cover immediately. The suspects started opening fire at the police cars, shattering windows and sparking off a massive high-speed chase. Now, police say the suspects crashed their SUV and later escaped on foot, trying to find cover in a residential neighborhood. Could you imagine this kind of thing happening right in your front yard? Eventually, officers tracked them down to a shed in a home where they were hiding and they'd take them under arrest. Now, at that property, police found 2 women, a mother and a daughter, shot dead in their own home. But Sheriff Grady says the suspects in custody aren't admitting anything.
Some of the suspects are talking to us and giving us convoluted stories. Others are denying everything. So at this time, we are not sure about exactly what happened, when it happened, and we'll have to plug a lot of the science into that to give you the intricate details.
Now, several witnesses who live nearby that house, they say they saw the whole thing happen, at least up to the point where they went into the home. In fact, some of them called the police inside their house with the doors locked, suspicious of what was happening. Neighbor Alice Ross says one of those suspects actually knocked on her door and tried to come inside to use the phone. She told police that she locked the door and went looking for her gun herself. A startling scene unfolding right there in that residential neighborhood.
These are very violent, dangerous people. And the only thing that they respect is somebody with more guns than they have.
Now, local authorities obviously convinced these suspects are guilty. But as police guided one of those suspects you can see here into the back of a squad car, he had one final promise.
I'm coming home. When? Soon.
Of course, all 4 suspects facing serious charges, but they say they're innocent. They're not admitting to anything. No officers were injured in the shootout there. And moving on now to other news, a nationwide crime spree ends here in Florida. Along the way, 2 Kentucky teens earned the dubious nicknames Bonnie and Clyde. Now they say they just want to go home. When they get there, they're going to have to answer quite a few questions. Grayson County Sheriff's Department says the duo are facing a variety of charges, including theft, burglary, criminal trespassing, and criminal mischief. 18-year-old Dalton Hayes and his girlfriend, 13-year-old Cheyenne Phillips, were found sleeping in a stolen pickup truck down in Panama City Beach, nearly 600 miles from home. Local, state, federal police forces surrounded that pickup truck and made sure there would be no escape. You can almost say they were nabbed while napping. The suspect's mother, Tammy Martin, says they need to just come home and face the music.
I would tell them both that we love them and miss them, and that there's been, enough charges that are going to be filed on them as it is, and they need to come home.
Sounds as though there could be a little bit of tough love in their near future. Police tracked the couple through North and South Carolina, also parts of Georgia, before eventually following them into Panama City, where they were arrested. And yet another twist in the John Goodman DUI manslaughter trial. Goodman, the Wellington native, now facing a 16-year prison sentence after his retrial ended in a guilty verdict. That case is closed. But along the way, you might remember the feds busted another man suspected of trying to throw the jury. Ever since the trial ended, 48-year-old Vermont native James Perrin has been locked up in Palm Beach County Jail. Now authorities are extraditing him back to New York, where he'll face separate larceny charges for a completely different case. Perrin's headed to court there in New York to face felony charges on accusations that he conspired together with another man to steal over $50,000 from a man who thought Perrin was just a handyman doing some repair work. Court records also say Perrin dressed up as a police officer at one point and tried to intimidate the victim to force him into paying that bill, over $50,000. Now, when Perrin finishes up that trial, he'll have to come back to Florida and answer to charges that he offered a key witness up to $1 million if he could deliver a hung jury in the Goodman case. That's the retrial, of course, after the first one ended in a mistrial for jury misconduct. Now, if convicted, Perrin could see up to 20 years in federal jail, even longer than Goodman himself. Meanwhile, in Broward County, a new investigation after 2 deputies fired their weapons at the middle of an intersection in West Palm Beach. It's a mystery. Nobody was injured, but authorities still suspended the officers in question. 24-year-old Christopher Mattingly, 26-year-old Norman Stapleton, both relatively new hires after joining the force in the last year or two, a little green, perhaps. Now they've turned in their patrol cars, their badge, their gun, while detectives look for answers. What everybody wants to know, why did they pull the trigger? Right now, the sheriff's department really isn't saying too much. They're keeping the cards close to the vest. They did promise that once the internal investigation is over, they'll issue a full report. What we do know is this: the 2 deputies in question were not arrested or charged yet. We're still working to confirm rumors that perhaps one officer might have tricked another into what they call a car pop. Yeah, you might have heard of it, the spin-off of the desk pop scene and the other guys.
Don't think, just go. Here we go. Do it, yes.
Shots fired!
Hey, Terry, I did my first desk pop. It's a real thing, right?
I'm sorry, guys, but it doesn't matter how convincing the argument, you can't just open fire without cause. And also, I would go to say that you wouldn't want to follow in Alan Gamble's career steps. You might end up directing traffic somewhere. But in all seriousness, though, we'll continue to follow that and see if any charges are filed against those 2 officers. Well, you know, they say several studies show Monday, the most common day for employees to call in sick or take personal days from work. In the Delray Beach, we're seeing this phenomenon play out in a completely different fashion. It's rather interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this before. Police say 25-year-old Marcel Holman lives at home with 2 other women. Now, according to police reports, the women had been trying to convince Holman he needed to go get a job. But when he had heard enough, the women say he would rather go to jail than to get a job. Holman allegedly at that time took a brick outside and smashed one of the windows out of one of their cars. The police arrived and took him under arrest. He didn't fight it either. Holman told the police, quote, "I am ready to go to jail. Please take me," asking to go to prison. Holman is now out of jail, facing charges of criminal mischief. Of course, the lengths people will go just to avoid work. There's got to be some easier way. You know, someone should introduce this guy to Jerry Seinfeld's Rolodex method. A lot of good excuses in there to use at your disposal to miss work.